G'day, it's Nav here again from Lonesome, and today we are fortunate enough to have Joe Chi from JoJo's Lawyers to talk about more things to do with conveyancing in Queensland, because Joe is focused on Queensland only. The three topics Joe is going to be talking about today is stamp duty, first home buyers grant, which FOG, and the new first home loan deposit scheme, which the government has announced, and it has 10,000 positions available. Good day, Joe. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you going, Nav?
Good, good. So we'll start with you introducing yourself. Tell the people who you are, what you do, what you specialize in.
Yeah. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Jo from JoJo Lawyers. I'm the principal solicitor of my firm. So we're based in Mount Gravatt East and focus solely on residential conveyancing. So we look after all your conveyancing needs from start to finish. Some of the advantages of going through with us is that we place a great emphasis on client care. So we take care of our clients from start to finish in the conveyancing process. We focus exclusively on conveyancing. So I've been practicing in this area exclusively for 6 years. And we have a legal practitioner guiding you through the process from the very beginning. So it won't swap hands to another person, and you have the one person to contact throughout the conveyancing process. Yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. And Nab, over to you.
Brilliant. So let's start with stamp duty. So tell us a bit about stamp duty. Who is likely to incur a stamp duty on purchase of a property? What scenarios stamp duty is applicable? Where concessions apply? Things like that.
Okay, yeah, sure. So stamp duty, another name known for stamp duty is also called transfer duty. And people know that they have to pay stamp duty, but they don't really know what it is. So I'll just quickly explain what stamp duty or transfer duty is. Basically, it's like a state tax applicable to the transfer of your property based on the value of your property. So the greater the purchase price of your property, the greater the stamp duty price you have to pay. So who can apply for stamp duty? So something interesting about this is that the person who can apply for stamp duty doesn't have to be an Australian citizen. So they can be a foreign person. But if you are a foreign buyer, AFAD applies, so additional foreign acquirer duty, and that rate is 7% of the purchase price. So although the stamp duty concession can apply to anybody, if you are a foreigner, AFAD applies to you. So basically,
sorry to interrupt, just a thing. So a foreign national can be classified as a first-home buyer in Australia and get waiver up to 502,000 property purchase.
Like who can apply for stamp duty concession? So you don't have to be an Australian citizen to claim the stamp duty concession. You can be a foreigner. So you can claim the concession if you are a foreign person. You don't have to be an Australian citizen. However, you have an additional duty applicable, which is called AFAD, additional foreign acquirer duty, and that is 7% of the purchase price. So it's in addition to the stamp duty concession you receive.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. So yeah, there are three main types of stamp duty concessions applicable. The first one I'll go through with you is first home concession. So first home concession or first home buyer is when this is the first home that you purchase in your name. So you can't have held an interest in property in Australia or anywhere in the world. So it must be your first home. And there are two specific criteria that apply. So you have to move within 1 year of settlement into the property and live as your principal place of residence for 1 year. So when they say move into and live into as your principal place of residence for 1 year, that means you can't dispose of the property. So you can't rent it out or lease it. or sell it again within that 1 year. So, but there are some exceptions for renting. So if you are an existing tenant, you can stay in the property for up to 6 months, or when your lease expires, whichever one is earlier. So that applies to the current tenant in the property or the seller themselves. They can stay for up to a period of 6 months, or when their lease expires, whichever is earlier.
Okay.
So I can also give you some tips on the threshold amount applicable. So basically, to obtain the first home concession, it's between $500,000 to $550,000. So you must fall within that that threshold gap. So to obtain first home concession, if you fall less than $500,000, you pay $0 stamp duty. And if you're over $550,000, it reverts back to a home concession. So that's a good, so between 500 to 550 is the amount you can claim for first home concession. So that's a good number to have in your head. So when you know when it applies to your circumstances. So that's the basic eligibility and criteria for first home concession. So I can move on to the next concession if you're happy with that.
Sure.
Yeah, so the second one is called home concession. So that means you can buy your second or third home and be eligible for it. The same criteria applies. You must move within 1 year of settlement date and live as your principal place of residence for 1 year. And you also can't dispose of the property, so you can't sell it or you can't rent it out. But the same tenancy exception applies. So the existing seller or their existing tenant can stay with the property within 6 months or settlement date, or when the lease expires, whichever is earlier. So that's the so similar criteria as first home concession, except it doesn't have to be your first home. So that's the home concession.
Okay.
And then I can go to the last concession.
Yes, please.
Available. And that's the first home vacant land concession. So that's when you build your first home on the land. So you can't have held interest anywhere in Australia or in the world as well to claim the first home vacant land concession. And the two eligibility criteria is you must move in within 2 years of settlement date. So it's not the 1 year, it's the 2 years, because it takes time to build the property. So they take that into account. And you must live in there for a principal place of residence for 1 year. So you can't also dispose of the property as mentioned earlier. So the threshold is between 250 to 400,000. You can claim the first home vacant land concession. So if it's below 250,000, you pay $0 stamp duty. But if it's above 400,000, it reverts to an investment. So you get no concession if your purchase price is above $400,000.
So just a quick question.
Yeah.
So there's a threshold limit where you don't pay any stamp duty, and then there's a threshold limit when the normal stamp duty applies with no discounting at all, right? For example, you said in the land it was 250 and 400. What about if someone purchases a land worth, let's say, 380,000? How much stamp duty are they likely to pay then?
So that's classified as first home vacant land concession because it's between 250 to 400,000. So I will have to calculate it on the calculator online, and then they'll pop up with a stamp duty price that you have to pay. So if anything falls between 250 to 400,000, you can claim the first home vacant land concession. But anything above 400,000 is still classified as investment, so you have to pay the full stamp duty.
Okay. So basically, if someone is buying a piece of block of land, they, compared to buying existing property, and if the block of land is under, let's say, 350,000, they're far better off because they're paying our stamp duty on a purchase price of 350. compared to buying an existing house for, let's say, 800,000, because then you'd have to pay stamp duty on 800,000.
So this first home vacant land concession is only for land itself, vacant land itself.
I know.
So that's
what I'm saying is, okay, let's use a first home buyer as an example, right? The first home buyer has two options: to buy an existing property or buy a vacant land and build on it. So first, the stamp duty is applied on the purchase price, correct?
Yes, the property is
Yep. So
yes.
when buying a vacant land, the person buying the vacant land actually has a lower cost, stamp duty cost, because the purchase price is likely to be a lot less than an established house.
Yes.
So what I'm saying
What's
is,
the question?
it's not a question. I'm just pointing out that someone who builds has an advantage over someone who's buying a existing property.
Yes, because they can claim the first home vacant land concession, so the land itself, and then you're saying they can also claim first home concession as well.
No. I'm just talking purely about stamp duty. The amount payable, because the land cost is likely to be less than the established house, a pre-existing house. Someone buying land as a first-home buyer will pay lesser amount if the threshold is between 250 and 400. If the purchase price is between 250 and 400, they pay a lesser amount in stamp duty than compared to someone buying a house between 500 and 550.
Yeah, I have to calculate the exact figure on the stamp duty calculator online to be able to give you an accurate answer. So I have to actually put in the numbers to actually give you the correct answer, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay. All right. So let's move to first home buyers grant.
Yes, the first home loan grant, or previously known as the Great Start Grant. So people get confused between this grant and the stamp duty, but just like a precursor, they are separate things. One is a grant, one is a stamp duty concession. So the first home loan grant is a $15,000 grant towards the construction of a new home. So I'll go through who can apply for it. So an Australian citizen or a permanent resident, or they are applying with someone who is an Australian citizen or permanent resident, and you or your spouse must not have previously owned property in Australia that you lived in. And then the value is $750,000, less than $750,000 to be applicable to you. And there are some time frames you have to be aware of. So you have to move in within 1 year after the completed transaction and live in the property for a continuous period of 6 months. And how do you apply? You can apply through the banks, and they give you the payment of the $15,000 grant at settlement, or you can apply directly to the Office of State Revenue, but that takes about, they will finish the application within 10 days of receiving all the required information. So yeah. Okay.
The point to note here for on financing side of things, when someone is getting FOG and they're constructing, building a house, the banks won't pay the first home buyer grant until the slab stage.
Oh, that's for off the plan stuff. Yeah. I'm talking about established dwellings. So I don't deal with off the plan. I only deal with residential conveyancing, so established dwellings. So those are the applicable timeframes and how you apply for established dwellings. But yes, you are correct. For off the plan, you get your first payment where the first slab is on the property. Great. Now,
anything else we should know about FOG in Queensland, Joe?
I know that's the criteria in a nutshell. So that's it for the first home owner's grant.
All right. So let's talk about the latest grant that's available to first home buyers, which is the home loan deposit guarantee scheme.
Yeah, so the first home loan deposit scheme. So for this scheme, it only requires a 5% deposit as opposed to the normal 20% deposit. So before, when you had a deposit which was less than 20%, you had to pay LMI, which is lender's mortgage insurance. But under this scheme, the government has guaranteed the other 15%. So you only need 5% of the deposit to be eligible for the scheme. And there's two types of properties it can apply to. So the first one is for newly constructed dwellings. So to be eligible for newly constructed dwellings, it must not have been previously sold as residential premises, not previously rented, never lived in, and capable of being lived in from the date you settle. And then for existing dwellings, you must move in the property within 6 months of settlement date and live in that property. And there are also some other criteria to be eligible for it. For example, your income. So if you're a single, you can only earn up to $125,000, and for couples it's $200,000. And the value of the purchase price of the property is $475,000 for existing homes and $650,000 for new homes. So those are the threshold values for the purchase price of the property. And also other criteria is that you must be 18 years of age or over, and also you must be Australian citizen. So it doesn't apply to people who are permanent residents. You must be Australian citizen. So that's something to look out for as well.
So, and the other thing is, am I correct in saying there's two different price threshold? One is metro and one is regional property?
Yes, they have metro and regional. Mine is for metro in the city, so $650,000 for Queensland metro. But if you want the regional, I can look for it online right now. Hang on a second.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to make people aware that there's two different grant eligibility depending on your location.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
We don't want someone in the country buying $1 million property and finding out that on that first home loan deposit scheme.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they'll be emailing you saying that I saw your video and you said I could get it.
Yeah, there's different threshold values for different areas in Queensland. So you have to double check before you enter into a contract so you know whether you're eligible for the 5% deposit.
Great. Is there anything else people should keep in mind when it comes to the first home loan deposit guarantee scheme, Joe?
No, that's all. We've run through the criteria as well in a nutshell. So those are the basic criteria to be aware of. So if they satisfy them all, they'll be eligible to only pay 5% as opposed to the normal 20%.
Brilliant. As I said earlier on, today we've had Jo Chi from JoJo's Lawyers. She's been very kind to share her views and information on stamp duty concession in Queensland, as well as FOG eligibility and first home loan deposit scheme guarantee eligibility. Till next time, thank you for your company. Bye.
Thank you. See you later, everyone. Bye.